Today we'll be starting with the IDD part. So anyone has any questions for that? Okay, so IDD basically has two parts. First is the configuration part and second is the application part. So first, like, we have to go through the configuration part where whatever objects that we have configured in the MDM, basically the base objects and cleanse functions, match rule sets, all these we need to reuse in the IDD application also. So we cannot create any base objects, or we cannot make changes to any configuration that we have done in the MDM. Just whatever configuration we have done, we can just reuse those configurations. So first we will have to go to the configuration screen where we have to configure all the tables that we have, customer table, address table, and all the tables basically. When the lookup tables that we have configured, everything has to be configured. After we configure that, then we can go to the application and we can see the data and manipulate the data. So first, today we'll be seeing the configuration part. So before going to the configuration, we will discuss this concept basically. So IDD basically is configurable to 3 levels, and those levels are called like subject area. Subject area can be considered similar to a base object, like we have customer base object, address base object. So those are basically subject areas. Similarly, a subject area child. So for example, address is a child of customer. So that can be a subject area child. And similarly, a grandchild. So anything below address is a grandchild. So if you go and look into the, for example, schema viewer, so for example, if you take this table, customer, so customer is my parent table, or this I can say as a subject area. This address will be a child, so subject area child. This can be configured as a subject area child, and address type table can be a grandchild table. So only we can go to 3 levels in the IDD. And if there is any other level also, like before under address type, then we cannot configure that. So only 3 levels are configurable. So those are the 3 concepts, like subject area child, and the subject area grandchild. So IDD is configured only till these 3 levels. And subject area group is basically a logical grouping of all these: subject area child, and the subject area grandchild. So whatever base objects that we have, for all the base objects, we need to create at least a subject area. Means these two will be there: subject area group and a subject area. So we have to go in order. First we have to create a subject area group, which is a logical grouping, and under that we have to create subject area. And so it gives an option one by one. Once you go and create a subject area, it will give you an option to create a subject area child and then the grandchild. So these all are based on the relationship. So at least this thing, subject area group and subject area, I will have to create for each and every base objects which is there as part of our model, because I want to look into for all the base objects. Even the lookup tables also I want to see the data. So for that reason we will be creating this for all. Subject area child and grandchild is depending on the business requirement, what the business want to see the data. So accordingly we can configure it. So for example, this is a customer. So here let me on this what is. Okay. So here we have a subject area group customer. So usually, like as a naming convention, if you say, we can give subject area group as SAG. So that is basically a subject area group. Then customer. Subject area, we generally give this convention as SA to identify that this is a subject area. Similarly, subject area child is SAC and subject area grandchild is SAGC customer. So that's the naming convention we can give to each one of them. So now, like as we just discussed, how can we configure them? So first is like we have to create a subject area group. So this is a subject area group customer. Under this, I have to create a subject area child for the subject area. So the name is again SA customer. Under customer, I have to create a child. So under customer, I can have multiple childs basically depending on the relationship. So if you go to the model in the MDM side, you can see customer is there. With the customer, I have a subcategory which is directly related to customer, and also I have an address which is directly related to customer. So these both can be the child table, which can be configured as a subject area child. So that is why here I have put both of them. I have put subject area child as address and subject area child as subcategory. So I can put both of them, and under subject area child address, I have a grandchild also, which is address type. Under address, I have address type, and with subcategory, I have a subcategory table. So that's the maximum level I can go, and according to model, I have that much level only. If I have some more levels, then I will not be able to achieve that. So similarly for address also, if we go back to the Excel sheet, for address also I have created subject area group as address, then subject area address, and subject area child as the customer. So basically, this means that whenever I go and open any address record, I want to see the customer data also, that this address belongs to which customer. Similarly, here we have a category. So subject area group is category. Under that, I have a subject area of category. So that's my base table, category. So under category, I have a subcategory and then a customer. So because I can go only to 3 levels. So if you go back to our MDM here, I can see if I have this category as my subject area, then subcategory can be subject area child and customer can be subject area grandchild. So I still have many levels here. Address is there, address type is there, but I cannot go through it because that's the limitation here, that I can go only to 3 levels. So if I open a custom category record, I can see with which subcategory it is related and who is the customer who is related to it. So all these details I can see here. So these all are basically based on the business, that what the business want to see. So based on that, we will go and configure them. So at least subject area is configured, subject area group and subject area will be configured for each and every base object. Other things, child and the grandchild, will depend on the business. Depending on what they want to see, we will have to configure it. Similarly, one more thing we can do is, for example, here I can break it. Like for example, a base object, for a particular base object, I can create multiple subject areas. So here there is a filter type condition where I can say I have put here SA customer P. Means I want to see only those customers where customer type equals to P. Or next is like I want to see only those customers where customer type equals to Q. This I can do a filtering also within the same base object. Because for example, if we have talk about like a party table is there where we have all these person, organization, product. So when I go and create a subject area, I will see all the records. I will see customer record, organization record, product record, everything at the same place, which I don't want. I want to see separately the customer record, separately the organization record, and separately like the product record. So in this case, I can do a filtering here, like I want to see only customer type person, customer type organization, customer type product. Or similarly for other tables also, like if we say accounts, we have different types of accounts: current account, saving account, checking accounts. So in this, if I just go and create a subject area as accounts, I will see everything, all the records. Means the data steward can do a filtering later that I want to see only like saving account, but that they don't want to do. Specifically that I will go and do a filter and then only I will see it. They will see that whenever I should open, I should see directly the saving accounts only. So that's a filtering we can do. But if you are doing a filtering, you will have to recreate all these things. So you can see this is duplicated. The subject area child and the subject area grandchild cannot be reused. So I will have to duplicate it. So I have just copied it here on the down and just put one here. You need to duplicate it with some other name. So now we will go to the IDD screen. So as of now, like you are using 192.168.1.97. So you need to use the same IP. After that, :8080, we need to use bdd/config. So this is the IDD configuration. If you type after 8080 for MDM, like we have been typing /cmx. For IDD, we have to use /bdd/config. This will take us to the configuration screen. So in this configuration screen, only an admin user can log in. So as of now, everyone is an admin user, so you can use your own username and password. Or if that doesn't work, so you can use like admin and admin as a username and password to log in into the IDD screen. So username and passwords are same, admin. So this takes us to the configuration screen here. So now the first thing that we have to do here is adding a new application. So using this add application, we can add a new application here. So just give the ORS name. Here we can give the application name. I'm just giving the ORS name. Any name we can give. And click on OK. So this will create a blank application. And you can see there is a URL also. If you click on this URL, we will be able to log in to the application screen. But as of now, there will be nothing in that application because we have not configured anything. So once you create anything, then this edit button is basically disabled. So you have two options. Either what I can do is I can click on anything. For example, I will click on the above application, then come back again. Then you can see that edit button is getting enabled. Or second thing, you can on the left hand side you can see the ORS name. You can directly click on this and it will take you to the edit screen. So both the options are there. You can directly click here, or you can here come click on your application and then click on the edit button to edit the application. So here, once we are in the application, first thing that we have to specify is the ORS name. What is the ORS that we are going to use? So using this add button, we have to add our ORS. So we'll select the ORS and click on OK. This is required because once you select it, then only we will be able to use all the configuration changes which are present in this ORS. Similarly, if you go here on the right hand side, you can see HM configuration. So in case you have configured the HM, then you will see a drop down coming here. If you have not configured HM, then this will not come, because we have just configured the HM in this ORS. So I am seeing this admin profile. But in case you don't see this, you have already configured the HM and it is working fine. But if you come to IDD and you don't see this coming up, then probably it is not a secure resource. So you will have to go to the secure resource and make this all the HM related components as secure, because HM by default gets created as private resource. So you'll have to go make it a secure resource and then come back here. It will show you in the drop down. So now the first thing here, once we have added it, I will click on this subject area group and then use this add subject area. Here we can give a name of the subject area like SAG customer. So we need to provide this name and the display name, and ORS name will automatically come in the drop down as whatever name we have given. And then we need to select the primary table name. So I am selecting this table with which we have configured HM as well as. So here we have selected this. Now once you click on this subject area group, you will get an option to add a subject area. Similarly, once we go and add the subject area, it will give an option to add the subject area child. So it comes like one by one. So now we can click on this add subject area. And again here we can give like subject area customer. After that, because we have configured HM for this particular table, that is why in the drop down the entity type will get displayed. And if you have not configured HM, we don't need to touch this part, because it will not come as a drop down, it will come as a text box, which will be non-editable. So as of now, because we have configured HM, it will come here in the drop down. So just need to click on this, and other than no change, it will automatically say subtype column as BO class code and the subtype value as customer. So automatically this entity type name that we have specified will come here. After that, we have to select the display package name. So if you click on this search result display package, you will see two things, display packages and put package. So here we don't need to select any put package as such, we can just select the display package, because using a display package also we can do all the manipulations to the data. So now we have selected this package name. Now the next thing that we do is to click on this change column selection. In this change column selection, it will show me all the columns which are there in my package. Can everyone please mute yourself? So these columns are coming from the package. Whatever columns I have defined in my package, only those columns are coming here. So in this package we have all these columns selected. So whatever columns are required, we can move it on the right hand side. And like this column I don't need, so I will remove it as of now and click on OK. So this will add all the columns here in this layout. So one thing that we have to do, like whenever we add the columns, we see the row ID object column is there, which is a system generated column. So by default, like whenever you go and add a column or remove a column or do some changes, this row ID object becomes yes, required as yes. So this we have to make it as no basically, because we don't have to populate this column. This gets automatically generated. So for doing this, we can just need to click on this edit layout on the right hand side, and this will make required as no. Once you click on this edit button, it will give you that this column setting has been changed, as it cannot be an editable or a required column. So that's the only thing we have to do. If we don't do it, and later when we go and validate the application, it will give an error. So now here you can see required is no. For other columns also it is no, because in my base object all the columns are nullable columns. So if we make any column as like not null, here we can see required is will come as yes. So now like if we click on first column, like full name column, then we can go to the edit layout again, and there are some changes that we usually do. So first thing is the edit style. These all are by default. Basically edit style field base means it will basically show us the text box. So text box will come here, like here we have a bigger text box. Basically if you see this HM entity type here on the back, or this edit style, similar type of text box we will see here, the size of the text box. So sometimes, like suppose like we have a description column which is like might be 100 or 1000 characters long, 1000 or 200 characters, 2000 characters. So in this case, if we are using a text box, like a small text box like this, we will not be able to view all the data or edit the data properly. So only for such columns we will go and make the change. Otherwise, usually for other columns there is no text changes. So instead of field, we can say I want text area, and field size I want, like these are the options. So we can say full width. So basically a larger text box will come where we can input the data and we can see the data basically properly. So this change is required only for such columns which are very larger in length, so that we can view the data properly and edit it. Next is like what the change that we do is required. So we know that this column is a nullable column in my base object, but if I have to say that no, that is fine, like in the base object it is a nullable column, but I want that anyone who is inserting any data from IDD or updating any data from IDD, he has to mandatorily insert the full name column. Then I can make this change here in the IDD screen. So configuration, if we do it, when we go to the application, it will show a red star symbol depicting that it is a mandatory column and we need to populate it. So we can make this as a required column. Next is editable. All the columns are by default editable, means we can enter the data in those columns. Sometimes you don't need to enter the column data because probably you are populating it, or you are populating that column using a cleanse function. So like we had previously written a function, cleanse function, where we were concatenating the first name, middle name and last name, 3 columns, and passing it into the full name column. So I don't want a user to enter the full name. Whatever first name, middle name, last name data he is entering, I will concat them and put them into the full name column. So in such cases, I can remove this editable checkbox. So these are the two options which are used. And last is the default value. So default value is in case we want that if a user doesn't enter any value, I want some default value to be populated. So if you click on this add button, you will see like two roles here. These are the two roles which are present in my ORS level. So we can say like data steward. I will select one role and just put here test. So any user who logs in as a data steward role and he doesn't populate anything into this column, test will get populated by default. In case we have some requirement like this, we can use this default value. So these are the main things which are used in this edit layout. And then here we have a number of columns in the form view. Number of columns in the form view is by default 3, and it is usually like 3 only at most of the places. 3 means like it will show 3 columns per row. So that is fine, 3 columns per row is fine. Other options are also there. If you want like 2 columns per row or 4 columns per row, you can select them. In case like sometime it happens that my column names are very large, so even if I'm selecting 3, it is not coming properly. So in this case we can go and select like 2 columns per row, but 4 is usually not selected. So as of now it is 3, so the row ID object, full name and the first name, these 3 will come into a single row. Similarly, middle name, last name and the name generation will come in the second row. And finally in the third row we will see customer class coming. So these are basically the columns and the changes that we can do here. Next is the match setting. In the match setting, if we have created any rules, we will be able to select those rules. So as of now, when I click on this, it is not giving me anything because probably on this particular base object, there is no match rule configured. So that's fine, we'll go and configure it. It will not take much time. So once it is configured, we can see this coming up here and we can select them. So here it is required because suppose like someone is trying to create any record from IDD screen. So if he is trying to create a screen record, based on the columns that we have provided, MDM will check whether similar record already exists or not. So if it is already existing, it will give you a comparison that whatever record you are creating is already matching with these records. So do you want to create a duplicate record? If you click on yes, it will create a duplicate record. Otherwise, you can just cancel it. So for that purpose, we have this match setting. So I'll just go and create a match rule set basically so that we can use it here. Oh, customer, using customer one. So now I am like configuring this match rule set. One more thing I will configure here is the path component. So why path component is required to be configured here? Path component is required because if I go back to the Excel sheet here, we have a subject area child and the subject area grandchild. So we can configure the subject area child and the subject area grandchild only if we have a match path defined. So that's another important of the match path. Match path, we have seen like why we need a match path. We need a match path because I want to use column or other table for matching purpose as a reference. That is the reason why we create a match path in MDM. But in the IDD also it has a use. If you have a match path, then only you can configure subject area child and the grandchild. If you don't have a match path, it will just give you an error message that there is no match path available. So for this base object, we can configure only one level because we have a direct relationship between customer and address. So I will just configure the address under customer. So first is because there is a many to many relationship between both the tables. So first I will have to configure the relationship table, and once I create the relationship table, then under this I can create the match path for address. Okay, so the match path is also created and the rule set is also created. And now we can go back to the IDD screen, configuration screen, and click on the subject area and then click on this edit subject area. So now if we go to the match setting, we should be able to see the rule set that we have created. So this is the rule set, which is main rule set. Match type is, we have two options, both auto and none. So usually both is selected so that if we have auto rules or manual rules, both of the rule gets applied here. And then we can select all the columns here, like available match columns, person name, which includes first name and the last name column. Then next we will see this data security tab. Data security is basically we can say this is basically a filtering criteria. Filtering criteria in the sense like we have different data stewards. For example, we have data stewards from India, data steward from US. So I want that data steward from India should only look into those customer records which are in India. Similarly, data steward US should see only those customer records which are from US. So similarly, different level of filtering can be applied here. So the top is the match root. So root is basically the base object, which is my customer. So it is showing me all the columns from the customer table. Similarly, if I click on this, I can see root, then the relationship table, and then the address table. So I can select any one of the table here. So let us select like the address table, and we have the country code here. So I can say like country code as IND. So any user who logs in as a data steward role will see only those customer records where country code equals to IND. So, and if I am not doing any changes for this role, data steward customer, this means user will be able to see all the records, whether it is IND or US or any other country, he will be able to see all the records. So like this we can do a filtering. of the data, because usually there will be different levels of person and we want to show them specific data. Plus, like some companies operate in different regions, so they will say that that data steward knows particularly about that country data, so there is no point that he will look into the US data. So like this we can do a filtering here. So that's basically a data security. Next is the data masking. Basically, data masking is basically to mask a particular column value. So for example, like we have some PAN card number, passport number, SSN number, or any other important information which the business doesn't want to show to everyone. So they will say that only a person with a specific role only can view these data. Other people should not be seeing this data. I want that star mark should be present in that data. So here we can click on the add button again. We can select the columns. So here we cannot select column from the child tables. I can select the columns only from the base tables. So for example, like middle name is not that important column, but just I am selecting a column here. So we can say middle name. Masking pattern here as of now doesn't matter. So you can give anything here, any value you can put, something should be there. And then we have a test data. So if you put some value here and test it, it will just show star marks. So this is the masked value. So here also I can select a particular role, like any user who logs in as a data steward role, he will see the middle name in star marks. So that is basically the data masking part. One more thing that I would like to tell is, in the version 10 they have come up with a new concept also, which is dynamic data masking. That's a separate basically application, and if the customer want to use it, they can use it. So what is the basically a difference between the data masking which is present here and the dynamic data masking is, suppose like this data steward logs in and he do a search. So when he do a search, it will go to the database, it will pull all the records from database and it will show on the come to the UI layer. In the UI layer, it knows that this user cannot be shown this particular like middle name, so it will just mask it. But data is still coming from the backend to the UI layer. So just as a concept, they thought that if there is some hacker who is trying to hack the data, sensitive business data, he can hack it because data is coming from the database to the UI layer, and only at the UI layer it is masking it. So that's why the concept of dynamic data masking has been introduced, where it knows that whenever a request is sent that this user, we cannot show the middle name. So what it does, it masks the data at the database itself and then bring it to the UI layer. So user will not, anyone even if he tries to hack the data in middle, he will not be able to see anything. He will just see star marks. So that was the concept basically for which it is introduced, but MDM is not an online system. It is a backend application which is used by a couple of people. So there is no as such security risk. So as of now I haven't seen any company being using it, but an concept is there. In case they want to use that dynamic data masking, they can use it. I'm not sure, like still I had only tested it previously long back when it was introduced like last year in 2015. At that time it was having some issues here. As of now, like I can say here that only the data steward, if he logs in, any user who logs in as data steward should not see the value. But at that time when we tested it, there like for every role it was giving the same thing. It was showing it masked value. So that was a problem long back. I'm not sure whether it was corrected or not. But companies are not using this as such. But in case someone asks you, you can just tell about the concept that what is the difference between the data masking which we have here and the dynamic data masking. And finally the cleanse here. So we have been talking about the cleanse many times, like we have to put our logic in our graph functions, because in the IDD application it's a drop down and IDD cannot use a mapping, it can use only the cleanse functions, cleanse list or the cleanse graphs. So we have to put all our logic in a single graph function for every base object. So this is the reason here, because if you go to the cleanse library, I can select, like example, this is my library, and in the cleanse function I can select only one thing. So only one drop down can be selected here. So that is the reason why we do it. Even if you have created some reusable component, that is fine, but for every base object you will have to create a final graph function where you have to put logic from all the reusable components. So here again we have input and the output parameters. So input, we can just click on the drop down and select the input columns, which columns I want as an input and in which column I want output. So here in this we have first name, middle name, last name, simple logic where we are making first name, middle name, last name in uppercase and also concatenating them into the display name column. So similarly the output, we can select in which column I want to pass the output. So again we will select the columns, first name, middle name and last name. And in the display name we can select this full name column. So you can see, like, display name I am putting as a full name column. So I know that whatever column value I will be passing in first name, middle name and last name, the full name will automatically get populated. So in this case I can make this full name as read only column. And I can remove the editable checkbox for this particular column. So that is what we have done here in the layout. For the full name, we have removed this editable checkbox. So user cannot edit or enter any values here. And I will just remove this required here. So we can put some in the other column like required. We can click the first name and then click on this required, that it is a mandatory column. So that's the cleanse basically, that how do we select the cleanse functions, and we need to provide this input and the output parameters here. The next is label. So label is like, for example, if you see on the top we are seeing Informatica MDM data director. So that's basically a label which is showing on the top of a tab. Similarly, when we go and open any specific record, we need to specify what is the label should get displayed on the tab. So this is for that purpose, because if you open multiple records on the tab, nothing will get displayed. So it will be difficult to identify, like if you have opened 5 or 10 records simultaneously, it will be difficult to identify which record you have opened, because on the tab nothing comes up. So for that purpose, what we can do is we can select a particular column, move it on the right hand side in selected columns, then again click on this and then append to label. So like this I can have multiple columns here, I can append it here. So now the first name column is coming as a label. So whenever you go and open any record in IDD application, whatever is the first name value, that will get appended to the tab. So at least it will be easy to identify the data, that which record I have opened, which customer record is opened. So these are the settings, main settings, and the others we'll see later task assignment. When we go and configure the task, at that time we'll see how we have to do. So I have made all the configuration changes, and before you click on anywhere, for example, if I go and click on anywhere else, all my configuration changes will be lost. So just make a note of this, that if you have make any changes before going anywhere or before clicking anywhere, just try to save this. Otherwise, if you click on, like for example, if I go to the applications and come back again to my URS, I will see that all my changes are lost. So this is a subject area that we have created. Now if we click on this option, subject area, we get an option to add subject area child. So subject area child we can create only in those scenarios when we have configured the match path. If we have not configured match path, we will get an error message. So as of now, it will allow me to create a subject area child, but grandchild I cannot configure because that is not configured as a match path. So if you click on this now, add subject area child, here we can give like subject area child as address. And now the child type. These are basically the child types which are available. So in the child types, logical one-to-one and like part of primary object plus one-to-one. These are three ones, means logical one-to-one, one-to-many, and part of primary object. These all three can be used when you have one-to-one or one-to-many relationship between your tables. In those cases, I can use these three. But part of and reference has to be used when you have many-to-many relationship between the tables. As of now, between customer table and address table, I have a many-to-many relationship. So therefore, I have to select either part of and reference. So basically, now what is the difference between part of and reference, and when do we use it? So this is an important concept. So I will configure one part of and one reference so that we can see the differences between both of them. So part of is basically like I am configuring address under the customer. So if I say part of, when I open a customer record, I will see the associated address. If I want, I can go and add an address, I can edit the address, or I can delete the address. Means anything I can do if I have done selected part of. But if I use the reference, I will not be able to do anything. I can see the address data, but I cannot modify it, I cannot add the data, or I cannot delete the data. If you have to modify the data, if you have to add the data, you need to go to the respective subject area. So you will have to go to subject area address, and there you can modify the data. So that's basically the difference between reference and part of. So for all the business tables, we always select part of, because if the customer like the business, this data steward says that for this person there is some problem with the address and he want to modify the address, he can modify it directly. Reference we can go when we don't want him to change anything. I don't want the child tables to be changed, or especially the lookup tables. If between a lookup table you have many-to-many relationship, then we will not allow him to do that. So for example, like as part of our model, between address and address type, I have a many-to-many relationship. So I don't want anyone to go and change the address type, because their fixed values are there, like billing address, shipping address. Only these two values show modified by anyone. So that's why for those such tables we can go for a reference. So as of now I will select this part of, and later like we will do one reference also so that we can see the difference between both of them. And now we will select the match path to child. So here you can see match path is coming, and this is the name that we have given for the match path. We will select it, and then again click on change column selection and select all the columns, whichever columns I want to be displayed. So similarly, once you add that, you will see row ID object is there. So you will again have to click on the row ID object and then click on edit button, which will make this as a non-editable mode. And similarly, we have one more row ID object for the relationship table. So for the child table, we have only these options: data masking and the cleanse. Either we can do cleansing and we can do data masking for that. So that is required because if you are going to add any address or modifying any address, I want the click to be applied. So that's why the cleanse is there. So now we have created this subject area child as address. Now if you click on this, we get an option to add a grandchild. So as of now, it will not allow us because there are no match path available. So this child and the grandchild can only be configured if you have a match path defined. If you don't have a match path, it will not allow you to configure the child or the grandchild level. So this is like we have configured customer subject area group as customer, then subject area as customer, and then address. Similarly, we can go and now configure subject area group as address, and under address we can configure the customers. And in that we can select like a reference so that we can easily see the difference when we go to the application side, that what is the difference between the reference and the part of. So that we'll see tomorrow, like how configure that the reference part, and there are other sort of things which are still remaining in the configuration. So tomorrow also we'll be discussing about the configuration part, and probably like day after tomorrow we'll be going to the application side and see like whatever configuration changes we have done, based on that how the data is looking into the UI layer. So any questions on this, whatever we have discussed? I didn't. So IDD documents are also there in the shared path. So here in this we have the IDD documents. So you can first go through this new BDD app. So whatever steps today I told you, those all the steps are present here in the new BDD app with the screenshots. And once you have gone through it, then you can go through the other, like part 1, part 2, part 3. Overview is there, so then you can go through all these. Okay, so then we'll continue tomorrow. Thanks everyone.
Vinay,
Yes, Shri.
you didn't share the path for the shared folder. You told you'll mail.
Okay, okay, Shri. I will send you, give you now only.
Yeah,
I thought
okay,
that
please.
everyone is already having that.
No, I didn't receive the link. Okay, thank you.
No, okay. Yeah, I pinged you, so just copy that.